Youth sport is a billion-dollar industry. Athletic development plays a significant role in that. I'm your host, Nathan Parnham, athletic development coach and author of The Sporting Parent. Here, I'll share my thoughts on youth athletic development. Welcome to The Get Down, a podcast for parents, coaches, and schools involved in the youth sporting landscape to help set your athletes or programs up for success. Before we get stuck into today's episode, I just want to give a huge thanks to our platinum sponsor, Play. Play is a global leader in high-performance fit-outs. I've worked with a team at Play for many years now, not only due to the quality of products, but because I fundamentally align with their vision to inspire human performance. From their industry-proven athletic flooring, Icon X racks, to their equipment line, they are a testament to what high performance is all about. Check them out at play.us or on social media to learn more, including our show notes for further information.
1, 2, 3, 4.
A big thanks to our guest episode sponsor, GymAware. GymAware is the #1 velocity-based training company in the market. They've been around for over 22 years and are deservingly synonymous with VBT. GymAware Flex, in particular, is greatly desired by high schools due to its modest price point, ease of use with youth athletes, and for me personally, in these environments, it suits multiple purposes, which I've highlighted in episode number 3, the necessity in choosing technology for that reason in the school setting. GymAware has an exclusive offer for listeners of the Get Down podcast, offering 5% off any individual Flex unit using the code GETDOWN5 at checkout. This guest is an exciting one. He's currently the high performance manager of the Newcastle Knights and the New Zealand Rugby League teams. Prior to this, he has held various high performance and athletic development roles in the sporting industry, including positions with the West Tigers, Cronulla Sharks, both in the NRL and Exos. Prior to working in high performance sport, he also worked as a PDHPE and science teacher with the New South Wales Department of Education and as a rugby league development officer. His experience spans across different levels of management, athletic performance, development, and coaching, showcasing a well-rounded and extensive background in elite sports performance and management. We met what seems like an eternity ago now, and I can honestly say, as a mate, it's been amazing to see his career progress and how he has not only compounded his level of experience throughout it, but seamlessly transitioned from the development space to elite sport. I always value our conversations and being able to lean on him here or there for advice and industry insights. So without further ado, let me introduce to you our guest for this episode, Matthew J. I want to take this moment to let you know the great news. Early bird tickets are now available to my Youth Programming Fundamentals workshop located in Sydney on October 19. The youth landscape has never been so big. With the abundance of information out there, how do you apply it in a best practice setting? I've solved this for you with 6 topics combining both theory and practical components, whilst also including a fully customizable programming template to go with it. The outcome? Enhance programming quality for your clients, saving you time in the process. Tickets are extremely limited to this once-only event. Jump over to eventbrite.com.au and search Nathan Parnham, or alternatively, Youth Programming Fundamentals Workshop. For further information, please check out our show notes and secure your early bird rate today. So you've had an illustrious career that has taken you around the world coaching to different areas, and one of those specifically was China. And you've seen a bottoms-up approach to this, being that you've seen all the way from the schooling through the development space to elite sport. So because I think, is it 7 seasons or something like that now you've done in the NRL, is that right?
Yep. Yeah, I think this is my 8th
season currently.
Yeah. Purely NRL, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. And so I suppose with that plethora of experience, then what are some of the attributes that you feel make an elite rugby league player, given that you've seen so many of them come through the schooling and development pathways through to, if you want to call it, making it. What do you think are some of the attributes that make an elite rugby league player?
Yeah, it's across the entire journey. The biggest thing that stands out is number one is talent. They all have talent, and it's age. I guess it's age specific talent, like relative to obviously the age group you selected in. But you know, the old saying, hard work trumps talent when talent doesn't work hard is so true. I've seen so many talented athletes not realize their true potential because they don't have an ability to work hard or don't have the discipline in and around all areas of high performance that actually will allow them to capitalize on that talent. So first and foremost, everyone I've ever coached or seen come through the grades has had talent, but not all the most talented ones make it because, as I said, they fall down on the hard work or something in and around their lifestyle choices or their lack of discipline towards, many aspects of high performance falls down. And that's why, for me, the most important thing in that pathways, like development phase is the people that you have in those environments. Like the talent needs to get nurtured and obviously your technical, tactical coaches are the big talent drivers in that space. So you need really good coaches in your development pathways, and then you need good performance staff. Like the performance staff create the environment to foster hard work, and then also provide the framework for education in all those areas that need discipline. Like you've got, your nutrition, your recovery, your lifestyle choices, your application to, your prehab, your rehab, your extras that you do, your ownership that you take over your own career. Those types of things need to be taught. Players just don't come through learning on the run. They need good people in development pathways to coach those areas. So it's everyone has talent, but we also need a good pathway system and stream to foster the talent and to, I guess, bring up those areas that aren't naturally occurring in some of our athletes.
Because would you say that a big part of it is that they get to, like, it's for, I know this is going to sound like I am bastardizing this, but would you say that it's easy to have talent in the formative and the younger years, but then as soon as they get into that late teens, early 20s, then that talent side of it, there almost becomes a divide in that both parties would be equally talented, but one side of it is probably more intrinsically motivated with exactly what you've mentioned there, that they've had, the opportunity to be coached, they've been educated in the process, and then combined with being intrinsically motivated, that's where they go to another level, and that's where that separation of talent occurs. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do agree. Like as we know, once you start to get to the pointy end, you've got to have that intrinsic motivation to make sacrifices in certain areas of your life that require discipline. Like, that I reckon the formative age around 18, where lifestyle choices are coming up, and you've got a choice as a young athlete. Do I go down this path, the normal path that maybe a young adolescent's taking, so parties and going out and having fun with their friends and just doing what we all do, or making those sacrifices and making those choices to pursue and continue to pursue your dream. And a lot of that obviously is that intrinsic motivation that's driving that athlete to say no to certain lifestyle choices, to say no to what the norm are doing, and to continue driving their own personal standards and their own growth areas to achieve what they want to achieve. So you very much do see that divide. And that's, I've seen some of the most talented athletes I've ever seen at 18, even at 20, not go on to have NRL careers because, one, that intrinsic motivation wasn't there, and two, the call or the calling from their friends and those other aspects of life that come to you as a young adolescent were too strong.
Yeah.
Too strong. And also other areas in which the pressure of the environment through external pressure from their family it may have been too much, and the burnout comes in, and that's where we have to understand the pressures that are placed on certain young individuals in and around the pursuit of a professional career. And it's probably going off topic a little bit, but some parents place so much pressure on these young athletes to try and achieve, I guess, a socioeconomic step forward through the attainment of a contract, that it can cause quite a bit of burnout for that young athlete and quite a bit of pressure, and they do fall by the wayside, albeit having extreme amount of talent, but those other areas become too much for them.
Yeah, and I suppose going back to what you said is that having that, when you mentioned kind of development pathway, is that because you're right, obviously, and it's not kind of derailing. I think it's a good conversation point, is that sometimes parents see sport as a vehicle for the monetary side of things and succeeding or setting them up financially when it comes to that. And part of the challenge that comes with that is that when they do get to the crunch time years, I call them the crunch time years because it becomes a point where, yes, we've mentioned intrinsic motivation, but the parents are no longer there kicking their butt, getting them to their sport. They're turning up to sport, but I suppose it's their application when they are turning up to sport that allows them to take it to the next level. So, like, over the past decade, there's been a big trend, I suppose, in private facilities opening up, and in particular, specialising, trying to tap into that youth market. So a lot of the listeners of the podcast are fully aware in that sport is $1 billion industry, and particularly in the youth setting. And I suppose I want to get your insights and your thoughts on how essential is it, do you feel, for parents to get their children into specialised training early to succeed in sport?
Yeah, I'm a big advocate of the multi-sport athlete as a kid, like up until maybe 16, 17 years of age. I really think you should play a wide variety of sports, whether that be a winter sport, a summer sport, or a team sport, or an individual sport. We know that the growth that you're going to have through the diversity of environment, diversity of sport, is going to pay you back later on. And we all know the research that early specialization increases injury rates, higher rates of burnout. So I'm very much an advocate of that multi-sport athlete. And, you've got degrees of transferability with sports. You might have a rugby league player that plays rugby league in the winter and touch footy in the summer. And there's obviously a lot of similarities there. But in terms of specialist academies and coaching, I don't think our athletes need to go down that path. I don't think it's going to give them a greater chance of success.
Yeah.
Okay. I really think the more sports you can be involved in, the greater level of diversity of athletic pursuit is going to make you, in my opinion, more resilient, more robust. It's going to give you a broader range of athletic skill sets, and it's going to give you a broader range of experiences that, come the time you specialize, I think that's going to all pay you back.
It's an interesting point, yeah, because sorry to cut you off there, mate. I love the fact that you've mentioned multi-sport, you've mentioned different avenues and also different environments, but I love the fact that you've also mentioned, you've taken it a step further in that you've mentioned seasonal participation, so summer and winter, but then you've also taken another step further and you've mentioned team sport and individual sport. So you think there's definitely a strong, I suppose you sound like you're a strong advocate for exposing them to a variety of different environments to essentially be able to set them up for success at the right time, is what you're saying.
Most definitely. And there's so many sports you can get involved in now. And I'm both getting on in age, but like when I was young, there wasn't many sports to involve ourselves in. But I see, rugby league as an example. You play it in the winter, but you go and do a individual sport such as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the summer, or you could do it year round. But just the transferability of certain characteristics of contact and wrestle, very important. But I think that the mental and mindset approach that you have to undertake during Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, when it's a one-on-one competition, there's no one else to rely on, it's just you and the opponent. And, any combat sport or any one-on-one pursuit, you're going to have different mental challenges. Like, you've only got yourself to rely on. It's success or failure is up to you and you alone, and your application and your pursuit of excellence in that craft. So I think there's so many degrees of transferability across an individual sport like that and a team sport. And it doesn't even have to be that. It could be golf. I'm sure the listeners will agree, you'll go for a game of golf and it can be extremely frustrating if you're not on your game. There's a mental approach to every shot, to a consistent setup, a consistent swing. There's a lot you can take from that and apply that to a team sports setting. So yeah, very much an advocate for multi-sports and also looking for opportunities and learning opportunities from each sport that you can take to your main sport once you choose to specialize.
Yeah, because I like the fact that I love the fact I know you're a big fan of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, BJJ, being a participant yourself, and I love the fact you've brought it up for two reasons. The first one being that what you're talking about there is them essentially being accountable. So when you're playing an individual sport, then the buck stops there. It falls at you, and that's a growth mindset, and that's an opportunity for growth from an individual perspective, because you're not bolstered essentially by your teammates. And the other side to that I wanted to reinforce too, for the parents who are listening, in my book, The Sporting Parent, I actually talk about using or encouraging parents to get their children involved in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as a part of building fundamental movement skills, but also building strength as well, and doing it early, because quite often there's I suppose a misconception that when it comes to combat sport and contact sport specifically, also that, oh no, they should be doing that when they're older, and that you don't want them going around punching other kids and things like that. But we both know that through discipline and that intrinsic motivation as well that comes with it, you become accountable for it. And I think that's a growth opportunity for any child, and particularly going into their teenage years as that evolves as well.
Most definitely. And, my experience of, juniors going through the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu pathway, I go and have a role myself, and there's a junior class beforehand. You've got 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, and they're learning self-control, they're learning discipline, they're learning routine and order, and because the instructor that runs a very tight ship, and they quickly learn how to apply themselves in that environment. And I'm sure parents would see, great transferability to home and maybe in school as well, due to the disciplined nature of the gym when they're taken in there from a very young age. And, I know that's why I like to take my young fella to jiu-jitsu as well, because he's learning some skills that are going to transfer into so many other aspects of life, not just team sport application in 5-10 years time.
Yeah, for sure. And something else that is often overlooked is to do with setting boundaries. So you're from a teaching background. I've highlighted that in the introduction, and myself personally. And something that is very crucial when it comes to children, particularly, is they need boundaries, and they also need to understand where their boundaries lie. And by that boundary, I'm talking about their physical strength on somebody else. So being able to exert that. And then vice versa, someone else exerting that on them, and what that actually feels like to them, because throughout that's also a part of development and psychosocial development that comes with that in engaging with their peers. So mate, you're no, sorry to cut you off, mate. You mentioned the age thing before. But yeah, we're certainly no spring chickens anymore, but you're old enough to have seen the different generations coming through at an elite level now. You've mentioned that this is your 8th season with the Knights, and I've covered the development side of it prior to you actually working in the elite setting. So what are some of the distinct characteristics that you feel are different in the modern athlete, being physically, psychologically, whatever stands out to you, then say over the last 10, 20 years at an elite level?
Well, firstly, for the physical, we're probably seeing a more well-rounded athlete coming into an NRL preseason, because, in rugby league, we can get our hands on them very, very young. And in a well-constructed athletic development program, you may have an athlete start in your system at 13 years of age, and then they roll into an NRL preseason at 19. And they've got a well-rounded, robust physical literacy and technical tactical ability. So when they come into NRL, they're ready to be exposed to the higher levels of specificity that come in an NRL environment. And not saying that they get specialised, athletic performance coaching. There's still a big chunk of the big rocks being delivered to a first year in an NRL preseason, but they're coming in better prepared from a longer run up because come out of a well-constructed athletic performance program, which is something that I'm, pretty passionate about, being the head of performance, because if they come into your NRL preseason and they're not just there to survive, they can thrive, then they become a true chance of making the team. You know what I mean? And that's so important in creating your local juniors, creating from within, because it gives you a greater talent pool, gives you a greater training environment. Players want to stay because they're being developed from within. Players want to come to you because they know they're going to be developed. And also there's a small, I guess, salary cap subsidy from creating players from within. So that's, from a physical standpoint, I'm certainly seeing that. But a big thing that's probably changed is, I guess, an understanding and approach to the mental health side of things in the game. Mental health, the acknowledgement of health and well-being. Players are probably more open with it now. And there's a lot more services and a lot more support in that space. Whereas probably when I first started, I first started in rugby league in 2009, and, even just some of the NRL players back then, it wasn't, if there was some sort of mental health or well-being issue going on, it wouldn't be mentioned, and it tough men wouldn't be something you'd want to talk about. And that obviously underlying, that's going to be detrimental to your performance and your overall growth in the program. So I've seen a big shift in that. Definitely how athletes connect with one another and with the group and socially. And for me, that's the advent of social media. Like, obviously social media has got our athletes certainly more tech savvy. And from a tech standpoint, they're very much more interested in the data, the stats, the numbers, the GPS. What did we do today? How far did I run? What does this mean? What's the gym aware say in the gym? They're very more interested in that, a bit of the gamification of training, and they enjoy it. You can get the competitive juices going with the gym aware and the force plate data, and creates a good environment for competition. So I've certainly seen that grow. Like when I first brought force plates out at the Cronulla Sharks, I remember some of the older players going, "What's this? I've never seen this before. What's that tell me?" I do recall I put a I guess a leaderboard of, peak power output, jump height. I can't remember what it was, top to bottom. And at the top, there's, some young kid. And at the bottom, there's, this seasoned NRL vet. And I remember he coming up, he's saying to the group, "Well, that certainly doesn't tell you if you're going to play, 300 NRL games or not." And I was certainly putting my place on that day. But now the players want to see that, and they want to get to the top of that leaderboard. So that's certainly something that I've seen. Back to social media, I guess the access to resources, this is a big one. Like players see so much now on social media. So they see what Lionel Messi's doing. They see what NBA players are doing, and they become more interested in their own journey. I think there are, I guess, there's more of a shared ownership in the path of their professional success. Like back in the day, players are just, I'm going to do that, carry on, no questions asked. It's just, I know I've got to lift weight, I know I've got to run this far, and that's it. They were engaged in the process, but I wouldn't say it was shared ownership, the journey. Now I've got players, they'll bring to me different ideas. They'll say, "I saw this, what about this?" Or more so on the nutrition and recovery space. Like, the amount of conversations I've had with athletes about different nutritional interventions that they've seen online or heard on a podcast. And some of it's good, a lot of it need to filter the crap out of, but they are interested in that health and well-being space more so than ever. So, which is good. But you really have to navigate that with care, let them know that, hey, some of that has benefit, and we'll find opportunities for you to engage in that, to give them that shared ownership, but also let them know, hey, it's not for you, and this is why. So letting them understand that, there's a lot of good stuff out there, but there's also a lot of snake oil salesmen as well. And we need to let our athletes know the difference between the two, while also negating the impact of saying, "No, that's just not for you," but bringing them along the journey. And, hey, we'll find opportunities for maybe bits and pieces of what you just presented to me, but we can't go down. And like carnivore diet's a perfect example. I've had a number of players go, "Oh, can I do the carnivore diet?" And I said, well, there's probably some pros and cons to the carnivore diet. Pros, if maybe you want to look after a body composition and, want to look on good on the beach and yada, yada, yada. But if you want to be an athlete that involves himself in intermittent high intensity sport and want to do it for long periods of time, then it's probably not for you. But let's find a healthy balance, So I've certainly seen a massive rise in that. And then that comes back to social media, I reckon, because they're exposed to it more.
Yeah, and so exactly what you're saying there is there's a few things that I like. But first one, I love the fact you spoke about the physical side of things and the formative evolution of what that looks like, the coaches getting their hands on them earlier. And then the second one is the well-being side of it. I love the fact that across multiple sports, whatever it is, there's such an investment in well-being because it's definitely a big thing. And as you mentioned, you're working in the NRL, and a lot of clubs are investing heavily not only in the development pathways now because they've seen the value and worth, but they're also investing really heavily in the well-being side of it because it's not only about the injured athletes and things that are on the sidelines, but if they're not in an optimal level of mindset, then they can't perform at an elite level. And I think that's really, really cool to see the investment from clubs in that particular space. And then the final one that you've mentioned, which I thought was really, really cool, is a lot of people can look at social media and go, oh, social media is this or social media is that. But essentially what it is just creating a more of a curious mind, because you've highlighted the examples there where people see things and they come to an expert like yourself. And then it comes down to, okay, well, let's disseminate what's actually the pros and the cons of this and try and put them in the bumper lane, so to speak, when it comes to using the bowling analogy of rather than having that real big, broad bandwidth of there's so much knowledge and information out there, I'm lost. And what does this look like for me? And essentially you're helping them being, at your level, you're helping them sharpen their sword, so to speak, in their athleticism and essentially the longevity of their career, not only the level of performance that they're performing at.
Yeah. The social media stuff, you can see it increases our level of engagement and stimulation, like within the program. And they come to you so enthusiastic about this idea, and you can't just shut it down. And as I said, there are times where, no, that's certainly not for you. But, if I've got a 250 game vet coming to me with an idea, it's remiss of me to sit there and listen to this individual. And if he thinks that is going to help his performance, then, my job is to navigate that and get the best outcome so he's happy and we're still, pushing that needle in the right direction for elite performance outcomes.
Yeah. Yeah. Spot on. And so a big part of there's a lot of parents who are listening to this now because their son or daughter is playing rugby league and they're coming through the pathway, or they might be very much in the infancy side of it. We've mentioned about how it's important to play multiple sports and things like that coming through. A lot of the parents play a crucial role in essentially juggling the busy schedules of their kids in the many instances. So playing multiple sports throughout the year and in consecutively, because what we know is that you've used the word talent. So the more talented the athlete, then the greater likelihood they're going to be selected for multiple sports. And unfortunately, at times, it all ends up being all at once. Have you got any tips or central tenets, I suppose, you feel that could help parents succeed in trying to juggle that space? Is there any kind of things that stand out to you where there's common pitfalls that parents might fall into from a rugby league background, as an example?
It's like, by no means are my kids elite performers. They're 6 and 4, but I'm seeing it at the moment. They play soccer on a Saturday, and different age groups, obviously, and they get rostered on at the same time. So first and foremost, you need organisation. You need to be organised as a parent, and you need to have support from friends and teammates, because I can't get to most of these games because I'm working on Saturday. So my wife's got to juggle the schedule and make sure she's organised in advance to get our kids to where they need to get to. And one thing I've been fortunate enough to be around is a lot of debut from young players in the NRL, and every debut without fail, mum and dad are up there and the player thanks them for their selflessness and the sacrifices mum and dad have made to get that player to where they are now. And without a doubt, every person has said it. Thank you, mum and dad, for driving me everywhere, for doing this, for washing my kit, for being that champion of my journey. So what I guess the only advice I can give, and I'm trying to do it to within my own family at the moment, is just to be organized. And you're gonna have to make sacrifices. You're gonna have to make sacrifices. But my parents did it. I'm sure your parents did. All parents around the sporting landscape are making sacrifices for their kids to help them be successful. And I'm finding a big part of that for me right now is just being organized, having my schedule well and truly in advance for my wife, and getting out there and getting to the sport when I can, because, when your young fellow looks over and sees that you're there, that, that's going to keep them more motivated. And I like to be there as well. It's great to see them running around, but it's hard when you work most weekends. So organization is key for me.
Yeah, and I love the fact that in support of that, you've said organisation, but then you've also said support network too. So I think a lot of parents can take away from it, whilst everyone wants to be at, and you've used your own personal journey, which I'm really grateful for, and you sharing that, is that it's about sharing the load of it, whereby you might acknowledge that, their teammate, look, you know what, we'll take him this week because it's hard on you. Then that way you can get to your daughter's game and things like that along the way. So I love the fact that you've said being organised, but then also, I suppose, the support network and structure that comes with it. So something that I've really been admirable from your end of it is that, I suppose your vision that comes with seeing where sport's going and trends and things like that, because you're able, through your network and then also through your own growth mindset and exploration of how you apply your craft. What's your thoughts on where you see that? And I know you're not directly working in it, but from an elite level, where do you feel and where do you see that youth sport is trending in the years to come that would encourage, I suppose, athletes from making it into professional sport or not?
I see a number of trends. The first one I'm seeing just in the rugby league community is more specialised academies popping up. And whether that be a former player offering academy services, generally during the school holidays, but these formal, but these, I guess, academies encouraging, they're a paid service and encouraging skill development for your daughter or your child. And what I would say is, that I'm sure there's some really good ones out there, but I would also caution an individual looking at them and making sure that's the right place to go for the athletic development, or is it just a money earner for that former player? Who are the former players? Do they have coaching credentials? Or are they just using their name to get a whole group of kids to come and participate? So I see that, and by all means, I think most of them are done reasonably well, what I've seen, but I've just seen a number of those popping up, and I do question if that's the best source of development for these kids. But on top of that, I'm seeing, I think I mentioned it earlier, a greater diverse opportunity for sporting participation. There's so many things kids can do now. It's the world's their oyster. You can go and do gymnastics, and you can go and do jiu-jitsu or some other martial arts, or you can do this sport or team sport or whatever it is. So much that they can do. You can go and get skateboard coaching. I would have loved skateboard coaching if I was at the same. Try my best. I used to watch old VHS tapes and try and learn the moves and read the magazines. No one to coach me, but there's so many opportunities for participation. So I think, going back to that multi-sport athlete, I think we're going to see, a greater number of highly talented athletes, and it
probably comes down to that exposure. Sorry to cut you off, mate. It's just that exposure early, right? So there's a couple of things. So the first one being, let's be clear, okay? And I know Matty's gone at this quite passionately, as I have too. So if you've ever read my book, The Sporting Parent, there's actually a full, complete chapter talking about elite academy, if you want to call it that. So, but the one thing we want to say is that there are plenty of academies that are up and running that are actually doing a fantastic job of what that actually looks like. In support of what Matty's saying here, part of I suppose, my personal battle and trying to make sense of this is sometimes the way that the world is evolving, and We both look at it through our lens of the athletic development space and the long-term athlete development journey that comes with it. A lot of the time now, parents just want to enroll their kids to give them opportunity to engage in physical activity. So for the parents who are listening in the rugby league community side of things, Matty's a great example of, is an elite academy the way to go about, producing something of the future, or is it a money spending exercise? But something also to think about is that a lot of parents are enrolling their kids in this because they want them to do something over the school holidays. And I suppose there's nothing wrong with that as well, because at the end of the day, the real winner is just being physically active. And we know that with this generation, that's essentially falling off a cliff, is the activity rates when it comes to that. But the flip side to that is exactly what you've mentioned here, is that the opportunity is in abundance for kids to explore sports that you would never, like skateboarding. Just to reiterate that, skateboarding is in the Olympics, and they're going in the second round of the Olympics. And so Chloe the Flow from Australia, I think she's 14. So we're seeing them perform at an elite level, but we're also seeing the abundance and I suppose the uniqueness of sporting opportunity that comes with it, just based on that exposure early. So I like the fact that you've highlighted that a lot of that comes down to the privatization of sport and how big that looks like in the youth sector.
Definitely. And you're right in mentioning, take nothing away from academies that are doing great things. I'm sure there's plenty of them out there, but it just seems to be like there's a different one popping up, every couple of weeks. So
For sure.
I guess, yeah, you do have that diverse range and just choose wisely. But then, on the question again, like I think technology, like there's so much, there's coaching apps, there's fitness trackers, it's changing the way kids engage with sport. And, I left teaching, nearly 10 years ago, but you could see the learning style and how you present information. It was starting to change with the advent of phones and iPads and I wouldn't like to see what it is like now in a school setting, but I got out probably just in time. But utilizing, these devices to encourage or promote or support sport participation, like it could be something as simple as a Strava app and encouraging competition in and around that, and tracking what you're doing and adding the gamification to sport. Like we know kids love gaming. You can actually, link both worlds and create a little bit of fun. And my young kids into Pokemon at the moment, and I didn't, Dad, can I get an app on the phone? And I found there's actually Pokemon app where you can run around in a park finding Pokemon. So they're outside having fun. I guess that's a poor man's gamification of I guess an app and physical activity, but it just added a little fun element to getting outside and being physical, and also using technology at the same time.
Yeah, spot on. I couldn't agree with you more, because the gamification, you mentioned it even at the elite level, when you brought out the tech in your space and you use that word specifically, being the gamification side of it. And then you've just also revisited it again, talking about gamification, but this time how youth are evolving with that. And I think that's a massive thing. And I am still in the schooling space, and I will say that it's evolving at a very, very rapid rate. Every day is different. Every day is an evolution, and it's how we utilize technology to try and promote that. And that's something that I'm challenged with every day. And it's certainly something of the future as well. So, Matt, I'm conscious of your time, because I did promise you that it was going to be nice and succinct. So I just want to wrap it up here and look at, so every guest we get on, we have a power round, and you're obviously not privy to the 3 words or the ideas that I'm going to throw at you. I just want to see how, and get the listeners to get a bit of a tap and insight into how your mind works. So I'm just going to present 3 things to you, and I want you just to give us a bit of an insight as the first things that jump out into your mind. So the first one that I've got for you is human performance.
Unlimited.
Nice, I like it. Succinct. Okay, number 2 is development pathways.
Little.
And then the third and final one I've got is progress.
Every day.
I love that. 3 from 3, mate. Singular. Awesome, mate. No, you've done a great job. Mate, I just want to say, Matthew J of the Newcastle Knights, massive thanks for taking time out of your day. I know the listeners are grateful for your insights along the way, and particularly the rugby league community.
So, mate, thank you for having me. I've enjoyed the more formal chat.
Thanks, mate. Catch up soon.
Thank you to GymAware, the #1 velocity-based training company on the market, for bringing you the guest episodes. Don't forget to check out their Flex devices with the link in the show notes, and take advantage of the opportunity exclusive to the Get Down listeners, being 5% off Flex devices using the code GETDOWN5, being the number 5 at checkout. A big thanks once again to our platinum sponsor, the team at Play, for sponsoring the Get Down podcast. Be sure to visit play.us or our show notes for further information.
1, 2,